Don Rickles actually despised him more than any. Don Rickles was born Donald J. Rickles on May 8, 1926 in Queens, New York. Rose to fame from humble beginnings as one of the greatest comedians and actors of the 20th century. Growing up in the Jackson Heights community, Rickles was born into a Jewish family and learned early on to be quick-witted and have a sharp tongue, skills that would serve him well in his career. His father, Max Rickles, worked as an insurance salesman, and his mother was a homemaker who spoiled him and saw early on that he had a sense of humor, even as a youngster. Following high school graduation, Rickles attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts briefly, planning to start a serious acting career. His aspiration was to work as a dramatic actor on Broadway or in Hollywood, but his naturally rapid-fire wit and keen observational abilities gradually directed him down a different avenue, stand-up comedy. After his service in the U.S. Navy in World War II, during which he was a seaman on the USS Irene in the Pacific Theater, Rickles came home with a newfound purpose. Like many of his generation of veterans, he initially had a difficult time finding his place, but his inherent charm and charisma led him to pursue entertainment. By the early 1950s, he started making appearances at nightclubs, playing first as an unsuccessful actor who would employ comedy as material to use as padding between lines. Upon seeing crowds react more favorably to his rapid-fire insults rather than his more serious endeavors at drama, Rickles went all in with comedy. This turn would go on to alter his life forever and leave an indelible impression on the entertainment world. Rickles quickly established a distinctive niche for himself in the world of comedy. Unlike most of the stand-up comedians at the time who based their performances on delivering structured jokes or funny stories, Rickles broke away from everything and started with a completely new style, insult comedy. He would get up onto the stage and start right away insulting members of the audience no matter what their background, occupation, or class was. His quick wit didn't spare a single one from Hollywood stars to common fans, and he earned a reputation as the man capable of roasting anyone and still be loved for it. His nickname, Mr. Warmth, was a loving irony reflecting the fact that his harsh words came always laced with good-natured humor and underlying affection. One of the most defining moments in Rickles' early life was when Frank Sinatra, then one of the largest stars in the world, saw him perform in Miami. Rather than showing Sinatra respect, as most would have done, Rickles took a bold step and insulted Sinatra right from the stage, teasing him about his power and influence. Instead of being offended, Sinatra was enchanted and became one of Rickles' strongest supporters, introducing him to other stars and solidifying his status in Hollywood's elite. The friendship not only boosted Rickles' career, but also demonstrated his balls and confidence, elements that made his comedy irresistible. Soon, Rickles appeared regularly on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and variety shows such as the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts, where his quick wit became the centerpiece of the night. While stand-up was the cornerstone of his career, Rickles was also an accomplished actor. He starred in movies like Run Silent, Run Deep, 1958, with Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster, and then the comedy films like Kelly's Heroes, 1970, with Clint Eastwood. The fact that he could excel in both dramatic roles and comedic ones illustrated his versatility as an actor. In the 1970s, he appeared in his own TV sitcom, CPO Sharky, where his sarcastic wit and sharp tongue were directed into the character of a U.S. Navy chief petty officer. He also became a regular talk show guest, such a favorite for his unpredictability and knack for being able to make even the most serious host crack up. Rickles' career was rejuvenated in the 2000s and 1990s, partly due to his position as the voice of Mr. Potato Head in the revolutionary Toy Story series from Pixar. He became recognized by an entire new generation of fans through his voice work in animated movies, where his signature sarcasm was brought to perfection in the character. He also continued to tour well into his 80s, performing in Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and throughout the United States, entertaining crowds who loved his openly old-school approach to comedy. While many entertainers of his generation adapted their acts to appeal to contemporary sensibilities, Rickles never did this. Instead, he relied on the assumption that his audiences would know his comedy was born out of love, not vitriol. On March 14, 1965, Don Rickles wedded Barbara Rackler of Philadelphia, a union that would become one of the longest-lasting and most defining features of his private life. Rickles, who established himself as the merchant of venom on stage and television due to his caustic, no-holds-barred comedic insults, tended to show a much softer side when discussing Barbara. Their marriage was viewed by most of his peers as a stabilizing influence, keeping him rooted in a world in which fame, ego, and career demands destroyed relationships. Rickles had publicly acknowledged that he had not found love easily. In his 20s and 30s, even as a star in the comedy scene, he had a tough time in romance. His quick wit and sniping tongue, which earned him great popularity with the public, too often undermined him in close quarters, leaving possible mates either frightened or unmoved. By the time he met Barbara, he was 38 years old, a confirmed bachelor whose friends had started to wonder if he would ever marry. They met through his agent, in a casual introduction that would revolutionize Rick's life. Ironically, Rickles admitted that what attracted him to Barbara was that she couldn't, or wouldn't, laugh at his jokes. Unlike so many others who hung on his every well-crafted put-down, she was not impressed with his humor, and this surprising reaction charmed him. To Rickles, Barbara's earthiness and unobtrusive strength were just the opposite of show business superficiality, and she was the ideal companion for a man whose life otherwise was filled with the craziness of show business. The pair continued to have 2 children, Mindy and Larry, both of whom made their own mark in the entertainment industry, but in varying forms. Mindy Rickles became an actress, continuing her father's work in front of the camera, albeit with her own unique route and style. Larry Rickles, on the other hand, made his way behind the camera as a producer. Unfortunately, the life of Larry was shortened when he passed away from pneumonia at 41 years old, and what a loss for the Rickles family this was. Don and Barbara, who were always committed parents, were shocked by his death. For a man who spent his lifetime putting others on, the agony of losing a son was one of Rickles' most intimate regrets, a lesson in the transience of life, even in the midst of fame and triumph. In spite of the tragedies, the pleasures of family life stayed at the core of Rickles' heart. In his memoir, he revealed that his grandchildren, Ethan and Harrison Mann, provided him with a new and surprising interpretation of his life's work. Adults marveled at his 4-decade career, his hundreds of late-night gigs, and his trailblazing impact on comedy, but his grandchildren were much more impressed by something far less complex: his voice acting as Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story movie franchise. To them, their grandfather was not the legendary insult comedian who had battled Frank Sinatra or performed for presidents, but the cherished toy of one of the greatest animated films of their childhood. Rickles enjoyed the humor and irony in this generation gap, quipping frequently that all his years of gritty toil and comedy were overshadowed by a wisecracking plastic potato. His wife of more than half a century, Barbara, stood by him throughout. Their union survived the ups and downs of Hollywood living, the difficulties of raising children, and the individual woes of extended careers under the glare of the spotlight. Friends of the two frequently commented on the true affection and admiration that characterized their relationship, a union founded on loyalty, humor, and love. When Barbara died on March 14, 2021, from non-Hodgkin lymphoma, precisely 56 years to the day they had married, it was as if this was a poetic and bittersweet ending to their life together. The symmetry of the date highlighted how deep their connection was, as though even death could not untwine their tale. When it came to Don Rickles, the so-called merchant of venom, there were few individuals in the entertainment field that he actually disliked. For the most part, his biting insults and acid-tipped barbs came with a wink and a smile, meant to amuse and defuse rather than hurt. But one actor, by the accounts of those who knew him